So it's been a bit of a while since we've done a, sit down colour grading session, and I feel like banging one out today. So let's bang out a bit of a grade. I've got my boy Mikey V here, doing the influencer 180 degree, yes, 100 million followers, bosh, straight to the moon, Bali, waterfalls, yeah, influencer, sick. Doing that whole thing, because when we go on these trips, it does happen and it gets a bit weird. Today's video is sponsored by Storyblok, so thanks to them. Let's get straight into Premiere Pro. By the way, people, you don't need to be using Premiere Pro. I'm going to be using the same tools that are in DaVinci, Final Cut, Premiere Pro, and all of the other editing softwares that are out there. So don't get your knickers in a twist. We're going to be fine, mate. You're in good hands, I hope. We'll find out. Anyway, so this particular shot right here, I am going to want to edit. And there's a reason I want to actually use this particular shot. That's because we've obviously got some reds, some skin tones in the frame. And then the background doesn't actually have any reds or anything similar to the skin tone. So what we can do is we can really isolate the skin tones in this frame, get our skin tones right, get them looking accurate, looking good. And then we can add our look and our grade just to the background. Because sometimes you don't really want to be adding like a really harsh characteristic look to the image, because it then like messes up the skin tones. So I'm going to show you a bit of a cheeky way that you can preserve them skin tones. Don't absolutely decimate them with your grade. Preserve them, add your grade to the rest of your image. Anyway, enough of the spiel from me. Let's get stuck in. This is the first time I've actually done an edit or a grade on B-roll. So let me show you like the ins and outs of B-roll really. So you've obviously got our sidecar here, which is like the B-roll sidecar, and we can change all of the different, color science. We've got Gen 4. Gen 5 is a lot flatter, much easier to add or like mix with other cameras, or to, the word I'm looking for is match with other cameras. We can change our white balance without ruining the image, which is great. It's non-destructive. We've got our color space, our gamma curve, can even change the ISO and that. So that's great. But personally, I don't really use the B-roll sidecar that much, only if I'm going to do like drastic changes to the exposure, or if I'm going to change my white balance. So for me, I mainly just like using Lumetri color. So I'm going to add my Lumetri color to a cheeky little adjustment layer up here. And I'm going to start with my curves. I usually like to start with curves. I've obviously got my scopes over here so I can see what we're doing scientifically to the frame. But first up, let's go over to our curves and let's add a bit of a cheeky gamma curve to this shot. So first things first, I'm going to pull down my blacks. I'm not going to go mad because I want to actually keep my blacks somewhat lifted at the bottom there. So let's go with, actually that's probably a little bit too much. Let's bring them back. Now let's pump up our whites. I want to kind of pinch these at the ends because I just really like that kind of slightly higher clarity look while still trying to keep it quite soft. So next up, I'm going to pull down my shadows. Don't want to go too mad with it, and I'm going to pump up my highlights ever so slightly just to make them skin tones and that waterfall pop. Yeah, I'm probably going to say about there. How are we looking? Right. For me, that is actually quite a nice look. I don't want to go too contrasty with this. I don't want to be pumping up my highlights and absolutely destroying my blacks at the bottom. I quite like the fact that this is a bit overcast, this is a bit murky, a bit moody, and I'm going to show you how I can really add a lot of mood and like atmosphere to this particular shot. So next up, once I've done my general amount of curvature, I'm going to go over to my basic correction here, and I am just going to pump up my highlights ever so slightly because they are a little bit low. When I say ever so slightly, I do mean just a little bit. So we'll keep them there. Next up, I want to make sure that my skin tones are looking good and accurate. Now, Mike has got a bit of like yellowy skin. I'm more of like, the pinky looking geezer of the group. But Mike's skin, especially in this shot, to me looks a little bit like goldy yellowy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a tiny bit of magenta into his skin. So first up, I'm actually going to grab my hue versus saturation. I'm going to pump a little bit of saturation into his skin, about the right amount that I'm going to want for my actual shot. So I'm going to go about there. But what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you a way that you can make sure that your skin tones are actually accurate. So over here on this little, cheeky wrench, or like in the UK, we call them a spanner. If your mate's being a bit of an idiot, you call him a spanner. I think Mike's a bit of a spanner, to be honest. Sorry, Mike, got a lot of spanner potential in you. So we're going to go over to vector scope, and I'm going to add my vector scope there. I'm going to get rid of my waveform for now, just so that you guys can see. And this particular line here in between the red and the yellow, this is the skin tone line. Now, a way that you can test to see if your skin tones on that line and scientifically looking good is you can go over to your shot, then go over to opacity and select a circular mask or whatever mask you want, and then just select skin tones. Now, as you can see, we're only getting the colours come up in that red and yellow kind of spectrum, and look, we're actually on the line. We're looking pretty damn good. So I don't really need to actually add any magenta in there. However, I'm going to do it anyway for stylistic purposes, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if you look at the background is obviously very green, and on the spectrum, what contrasts green on the spectrum? It's a little bit of magenta. So I'm not actually going to make Mike look pink. I'm just going to add the tiniest little bit of magenta to his skin, and this is just a stylistic thing for me. So let me pump, and when I say a little bit, I literally mean like the tiniest bit of magenta. About there. So look, if I go active and unactive, if you look at Mike's skin, you can't even really tell. To my eye, I personally think that tiny bit more of magenta, especially with the green in the background, looks a lot better. Let's go back over to our opacity to see, and we're still on that skin tone line. We're still looking pretty good. We haven't kind of made any drastic, unscientific skin tones here. These are looking pretty damn good still. I'm much more happy with how them skin tones look. They just look a lot more natural to my naked eye. So one thing we can do to like just instantly make this shot pretty damn moody is obviously we've increased the saturation on our skin, and I'm happy with where the skin tones are there saturation wise. If we pull down the saturation of all of our other colours, look at how much them skin tones just pop out of the frame. Now that is moody. This isn't the kind of look that you're going to want to go for like 99% of your shoots. But for me, I want to add that mood. I want to make this place look dingy, have a lot of character, atmosphere, dark, moody look to it. And pulling down that saturation really works for me. I like how that looks. But I'm going to keep all of my greens there because I want to actually use my greens further down the line. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go all the way down to the holy grail of making sure we keep our skin tones intact while we add that naughty grade look to our image. And I want to make the image cold. I want to make it raw. Even though, like, straight out of camera, I haven't actually done a grade on this yet. This is literally just like a little bit of, colour correction. It looks pretty damn good. Black Magic colours, mate. They're sick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to HSL secondary, and this is where we're going to do the magic work, where we actually add our grade, we add our look to the image. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about my good people over at Storyblocks. So if you don't know Storyblocks, Storyblocks are a huge library of online video and online stock assets. They've got over 1 million different assets that you can download and use for any kind of use. If you're a solo shooter, you're a personal user of the asset. Storyblocks have got a ton of diverse content for any kinds of needs. Every piece of content on the platform is completely royalty free, and you can download as many assets as you want. And they've got subscriptions for anyone, no matter what kind of scenario you're in. If you're like a one-person band, or if you're like a big marketing team, they literally have a subscription for every kind of scenario. So if you want to check out the first link in my description, that is going to take you over to Storyblocks, and you can check out the really affordable subscription offers that they have. I really do recommend going and doing that, because I actually use Storyblocks all the time, especially for my commercial stuff when I need shots here and there for different things. Anyway, back to HSL secondary, where we are going to, lock up our skin tones. We're going to lock them away in a locker so that no one can touch them, no one can touch the hues and everything else. I don't want people being touched. I don't want no skin being touched, all right? So what we're going to do is we are going to go and we are going to get our little pipette. I'm going to click on Mikey V's skin, and I'm going to go on Show Mark. Well, Premiere Pro, mate. Are you taking a mic or what? Right, basically, you lot know the deal. I'm going to select all of the skin tones, however your program fancies doing it. But anyway, let's grab these skin tones. I actually want to get back on my hero frame, so somewhere about there, I need to make sure his nose is in there. Come on, the skin tones, we can get you a little bit better. There we go. Cool. Right, now we're talking. Now we're looking pretty good. If I can get a little bit of his hair in there. Cool. Now I'm going to add a little bit of blur, which is basically going to get rid of all of this stuff in the background. You can obviously mask around your subject if you really want to get scientific and close with it, but I'm going to go for something about, let's go with that. Now, obviously, if we start, doing our grade here, we're only going to do the skin tone. So I could either turn Mike into the Hulk, he's going to look like he's been on a beach sinking way too many San Miguels, or he's been under some ice and he's got all kinds of hypothermia going on. That's not what we want to do. We obviously want to invert the mask so that we select all of the background and we can only change the colours in the background, and we've locked away our skin tones there. Look, we can't actually touch them skin tones now. And if you go all the way through, we're looking pretty good. Obviously, we've got a feather on this, but if you really wanted to, you could really go in and refine that, but it would take you a little bit of a while to do it. So let's get rid of our mask there. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to make our look. I'm going to add our grade. I'm going to add the way that we feel about this image. We're going to make it really cold. I want to contrast them skin tones with the background. So I'm actually going to bring this down temperature-wise and add some nice blue to the shadows. So if you watch up here, I'm actually just going to give you an example of how we're changing the background, not the skin tone. So over here on our scopes, check out them reds. I'm going to add some contrast to this image, right? Them reds don't change, right? Them reds are locked, and we're just changing all of that in the background. Now, obviously, you don't want to go mad with this. I actually just want to add a little bit of contrast in there because I actually want to bring down and make that pop as well. I want to make the old waterfall pop. So something like that. Let's see how we're looking now. Boom. See, I like that. I really like how that looks. I want to bring it down a bit in the background, make it a bit more dark and dungy. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to my shadows, which obviously the shadows are going to be these darker, more grayer areas and in between the greens. Let's add some nice blue and cold in there. Now that should really make them skin tones like burst out of the frame. Somewhere about there. Now, if I activate and deactivate that, them skin tones right now, without that HSL on it, don't really pop. They don't like smash you in the face, right? But when I add that and I add that contrasting colour, that cold to the background, them skin tones for me now are just leaping out of the frame looking at me. And I really, really like how that looks. Obviously, we got these greens in here as well, and I can add a little bit of like warmth to them if I really want to. Now, how does that look? See, I quite like how that looks. I like that frame. Now, what you also can do, if you really want to, you can actually take away a little bit of saturation in the background, like we done earlier on. Now, that is definitely too much. Come on, James, sort yourself out, mate. Let's go with about there. That, now, for me, is a nice, moody look. And obviously, we haven't even adjusted them skin tones, because we're locked away. We've locked them up. They're safe. They're in cold storage for any of you that are into crypto. Right, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, look, so active, bosh, 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 bosh. And as you can see, that really makes that image just look a bit sick. Like I'm really happy with how that looks. It really makes him leap out of the frame. Mikey V, you're looking a bit double naughty here, mate. Thanks to me. In general, you don't look that good, but I'm making you look damn good. That's enough for the man loving. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, people. I really do hope you enjoyed that. And as always, mate, I'll be catching you lots in the next one, mate. Bosh!